Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be working with some of my Cascade trees that I started earlier this year to see how they are progressing, and honestly I've neglected them rather. Talked before about my benches being overcrowded, and yeah, sometimes it's easy to miss things that you need to be working on sooner rather than later. But we're going to start with this, which is another of my saguaros, and as I pointed out in the formal upright and the windswept tree, these will back bud onto old wood, unlike most conifers. Got a couple of new shoots here and here which have developed quite well, and this one which was shaded out in the back. Zoom in. Come on camera, behave. Okay, so that's, yeah, there's the new shoot coming out of the back of the trunk there, so it will shoot on old wood, which is a handy trait, and as I say, not one that you commonly find in a conifer. So okay, so I'm going to start at the top, but I want to work on the main trunk as well, which I feel needs to be cascading further. I'd like it to come down more, but I'm going to start with this rather unruly branch here. Already cut myself a piece of wire, and I want to wire these two side branches, one up, one down, to try and bring this branch more into a horizontal plane. At the moment it's vertical. I don't know if you guys have heard of this Viewmageddon that's going on at the moment with YouTube channels, and my channel is certainly one that's been affected by it. Views are down considerably, and people are telling me they've had to resubscribe because YouTube has unsubscribed them, which isn't helpful really. I don't know why they're doing it. It doesn't help them, it doesn't help us that are making the videos, it doesn't really help YouTube either, because obviously YouTube makes their money by getting people to watch the videos on their channel, and if they're not getting people to watch videos on their channel, they are losing revenue. So I don't know. As I say, my views are down, so if you have the opportunity to share my videos, please do. Every little helps, as they say. Okay, so I'm just taking out a couple of these that are straight up, and then I'm just going to do a bit of plucking some of this growth on the ends, just to keep it in bounds and start creating it into a pad. I think I'm going to need to put a little bit of wire on that piece. So another old piece of wire I always reuse rather than fresh if I can. Okay, so just anchor that. Always a fiddle. Wiring trees that are in leaf, and obviously conifers are always in leaf, so they're always a fiddle. One nice thing about deciduous trees is you can wire them sometimes in the winter time. Makes it a lot easier. There, that's better. So gives it a more of a horizontal plane. I hope you can see that. Okay, this one's doing alright, but it's sticking up rather, so again, just a small piece of wire just to bring it into position. not going to do a lot of work, so I don't need to use a lot of wire to anchor. And then I can just bring that down just ever so slightly. Okay, so this I'm looking at as my perceived front, and this is my perceived top. I'm actually thinking it's a bit too tall, so I'm going to take off some of this top foliage, like so. That will become a gin. And then this piece I'm going to shorten to there, and as that back buds and shoots out some of these side branches, we can wire those into place in a future date. This piece I will probably gin. Okay, so what do we do next? Next I'm going to look at putting a bigger bend into this trunk and bringing this down. Okay, so using my block from a previous video as a handy aid, I'm going to try and bring the trunk down more near vertical. So, and to that end, I'm going to employ a simple piece of string and a small piece of tubing. If you've got it, you can use air tubing from a aquarium, or this was from a automatic watering system. I just bought a small length of it, and I've used it for all sorts of things. You can just wrap it around the trunk like so, and it prevents wire from scarring. I'm going to bring that down below that branch, and that will stop it from slipping upwards. Excuse me, a bit of a sticky throat this morning. Let's hope it's nothing serious. Probably just my hay fever. Okay, and then just using this string, I'm just going to pull it down and in like so. Okay, so that's better. Nice to tie it off. Got it coming down quite tight against the side of the pot. The string kept threatening to slip down the pot, so I've put a piece of wire through this top of the pot here and under the string just to hold that in place. So that also gives us the opportunity, if this is going to be the front of the tree, you can see a little more of that gin to be, so that's good. I'm not going to do anything else to this tree apart from a little bit of plucking, just so that it can stop elongating these branches and maybe throw out some further back buds. What I want is the foliage to adjust to this new position as the sun shines on it, and then probably next spring we can look to restyling some more of these. So I won't bore you with doing the whole thing. I'll do the rest of this off camera, and we'll look at a few other trees. Okay, back with the good old-fashioned shrubby honeysuckle. Cloud pruning seemed to be most people's favourite. from the last video where I was looking at trying to develop one as a broadleaf tree, and that's obviously the method I'm using on this. So just quickly run the scissors over, start bringing this tree back into shape. There we go. So once you've got the backbone, it's fairly easy to develop a pad and fairly easy to maintain one. Better if you do it more regularly, obviously, but it's not that difficult to bring it back into shape if you do let it get a little bit over hairy, as this one is. What I have found with this one is that it's been reluctant to grow downwards, so I haven't developed much of the cascading portion of this tree, but we persevere, and hopefully by the time we've got these pads at the top looking really nice, we will have got some extension growth at the bottom. Okay, just trying to, as always, show a little bit of branch coming out of the trunk rather than it just being foliage straight from the trunk. You very rarely see that in an old tree, as I've said before. As trees stretch for the light and extend, they gradually sort of shut out the light to the inner portions, which as the branches elongate, they tend to have less and less foliage the closer to the trunk, if that makes sense. You can see that quite well if you look at the pictures I showed looking up, as it were, in the formal upright saguaro video. If you haven't seen that, go and have a look. I managed to take some photos from the pot level upwards so that you could see what you would see if you could shrink down and lie on the surface of the soil and look up. Okay, so as we go down the tree, the pads are less well defined, but that will come over time. Yeah, so this, I think this is my preferred front for this tree, so we will persevere with it. It is trying to send out this long shoot, so that is the leader and will become the lower apex, I guess you would call it. I really don't know. Anyway, tell me what you would call it. Okay, so that's tree number 2. Here we have the goat willow, which is defiantly saying I'm growing upwards, but it has at least kept shooting along the length of the downward portion, so I'm just going to give it a cut back to a downward facing bud on these side branches, and remove some of this so you can see that this mirrors this curve. So going to shorten back this particular, that piece was growing very strongly, so I'm just going to shorten that back. Shorten this one and this one, and then I think I'm going to need to bring the block back in. Yeah, okay, so I'm thinking just a short piece of wire just to bring that into an interesting position, and I'll allow this piece to keep growing. It's definitely not going to need much. Making sure I don't wire it too tightly, because it is growing quite readily at the moment. Probably going to stop over August, but come September, these trees usually put on an extra bit of growth. So, okay, and all I want to do with that is bring it back down and round. A little bit more. Yeah, so this would be the front view, and we will see how things grow with this. Shorten that off to there. Okay, so as I said, I've done a bit of work on this tree off camera, pruning out some of this longer growth sections, put a bit of wire on it as well. I just want to put an extra piece of wire just on this branch here. I'm thinking this is probably going to be my front, somewhere in this position. I'd like to be able to keep this bit of gin if I can. So this branch probably not going to be in this position here. What am I saying? Having this branch in this position here obscures the trunk, so if I can bring it back across the rim of the pot, I think that'll make it slightly more interesting. I'm happy with the position of this branch, but I'll use it just to anchor the wire there. Under there. Okay, so now one thing people never used to say, or I didn't pick up on for a long time with wiring, was you bend the wire, not the branch. A simple thing, maybe I'm a simple person, but it took me a few years of snapping branches before I realised that, you know, sometimes people just assume a knowledge of the simple things, rather than that's better, rather than expect you to know everything, if that makes sense. I don't think it does, but hopefully you can get a gist of what I'm saying. Okay, so this is turning into a longer video than I meant it to be. I am going to just wire that top piece again. I'm still thinking this is my front, so if I put a piece of wire on there, I can bring this up and round. hopefully, should have cut that just a little bit longer. As another wiring lesson, don't be Scroogey. This will be a branch, this can be trained upwards as the new top, and I will still be able to show off the gin, which needs a bit more carving once it's dried off a bit. Okay, as I was saying, this is turning into a slightly longer video than I'd intended, so we'll leave it there and come back to a part 2 with some of the other cascades. Thank you all for watching. In these troubled times, please, please, please do take care of yourselves.